Welcome back to the Power and Purpose podcast. I'm Vanessa Stoll, your host. Thank you for joining me here today. Today is a Saturday solo episode. Today, we are talking about why astrology and human design is powerful for navigating our careers and our business. And this goes for anyone, whether you're working in the corporate world or whether you're a business owner and an entrepreneur. You can use astrology in many different ways to navigate your career space. And I think that when we apply astrology and human design to career and business, it really adds a practical component to these ancient systems. And you can, when you're testing things out, because a human design is an experiment within itself. In astrology, you're experimenting with how different energies are working for you. When you're testing these things out, when you're using this in career and business, you actually get to see the results a little bit more clearly. And that's the part I love. Like, I love it. I absolutely love it. Like, you know, I use astrology to understand what best marketing strategy is best for me. Right. So I use it, I interpret it for myself. I use it, I test it out, I get great results, and I'm like, wow, that worked. Right. So it's like the result aspect of it, the outcomes that we can get when we're really using these tools for business and career. It's very rewarding because most of us want to keep that momentum going in our careers, or we want success in our careers, or we want to feel fulfilled in what we're doing in our work and our projects. And so when you get to use astrology and human design for that purpose, it's just it's it's amazing. That's all I could say, is it's just really amazing. Not to say that using astrology for other parts of your life aren't great, because they are. I just have started to really hone in, niche, and specialize in career and business with astrology and human design because I like the type of results that it provides for people. And it's like you can't deny the results. Once you take a strategy or you get some insight, you make notes, you keep it in your awareness over time, and you use it as a solution for some things that you might be working through, and then you see what the result is towards as you make more progress through that journey, whatever that journey might be in your career or business. So that's why I love it, and that's why it's so useful. And I think that we're evolving as a society to where business and career doesn't need to be as challenging as it has been in the last 20, 50, however many years. We're seeing this with the new systems that we have. Like, things are getting a little easier. We can get things out quicker to people. There's ChatGPT. You can use ChatGPT to write a letter to a client instead of having to do it from scratch. You still put your personal touch on it. But we are in this era where we're making business and career and work and productivity more effortless for ourselves. And that's what's going to increase the quality of life. All right. So, another thing I want to mention is astrology helps us identify our strengths and our gifts and our skill sets. Now, most people know what they're good at and what their skill sets are. And even for those folks, astrology can offer deeper layers and different perspectives on your strengths, different perspectives on your gifts. You might know that you're a great journalist, right? However, really going down the rabbit hole, and astrology and whoever's interpreting it for you will guide you down that rabbit hole on all the different themes and ways and energies that you can really utilize in this example as a journalist to really get your message out in the way that's helpful for you in the world, is a whole nother way of exploring yourself. And astrology it gives us suggestions and answers. You choose which you choose how you want to call it. And you take a suggestion and you try it out, and you work with it, or you take whatever instructions astrology is telling you or the options that's giving you take it and run with it and see how it works for you. So that's kind of like the introduction on how astrology and human design I'll touch on that a little bit more. I'm starting with astrology because that's kind of like it's the foundation, and then human design is a layer on top of it once it's the appropriate time to start using human design with someone's blueprint, and while we're looking at strategies and events and how they could best navigate their careers. So next thing is understanding the cycles in our life is just important. Even without astrology, you got to understand that there's cycles to life. There's cycles in your business. There's cycles at your job. You know, you're not going to be in a full um, state of the same amount of profit, right? For for like a full 5 years or a full 2 years or whatever. There's going to be cycles that happen. And the more information that you have about your energy and what's happening in the universe, the planets, the stars, the moon, yes, it does impact us positively. It doesn't dictate what we do, but it does set an environment, right? That's what the planets are doing. The sun, the moon is setting a certain environment for us. And then we get to utilize our strengths and gifts and talents and our whatever choices and decisions we're making. The environment sets the tone, and then we carry out what we're going to do. So understanding those cycles can allow you to move with the universe, and it could prevent burnout and maximize success. We just recently went through, it ended, but we went through a Mars retrograde. It happened a couple times within the last 6 months, but a retrograde is when a planet appears to be going backwards. Now, the general rule for retrogrades is it's no matter which planet it is, typically it's time to slow down and not rush so fast and furious forward, or typically you just need to kind of double check your work or double check decisions, things like that. And typically you might want to be like a little bit more inward as opposed to being so outroverted or so focused on the external. So that's a general rule for most retrogrades. But the Mars retrograde that we just went through, Mars is the planet of action and execution in business. This is the business uh, interpretation of it, like the representation of it. It changes slightly. I mean, it's still the same, but it changes slightly when you're just talking about life in general or like romance or something like that. But Mars is the planet of taking action, you know, asserting your will, and taking aligned action with passion, not scattered action, not like where your Mars placement is. If you understand what sign it's in and what house it's in, you will get a good idea on how to take the right action steps. Just like you could take 2 action steps that are in alignment with your Mars placement, as opposed to trying to take 20 scattered moves all over the place that are like not related, you know, not supported or not really guided by your Mars placement, and you can get burnt out in that situation. Okay, so just a quick side note just to explain the planet of Mars. Now, we all have our natal Mars somewhere in our chart, but where Mars is transiting is also important. So we all just went through a transit of Mars in Cancer, and it's still in the sign of Cancer now, except the retrograde ended. And the last Mars retrograde that we had was from December 6th to February 23rd. So I really utilized that, and even my clients, because I told them right ahead of time, during the whole time, I'm like, hey guys, you know, and of course it gets there's some specific tips. The Mars retrograde, the transit does impact everyone differently. It lands in a different part of everyone's chart differently in this. So it might be in one area of life for me, and it might be in a certain area of life for someone else. But we are all still experiencing the retrograde. The point being is that I knew that for me, I had I have new programs and all kinds of stuff happening. My business is changing as far as like what I offer. And I wanted to hop out the gate and just start marketing it as fast and furious as I could. That was like that would have been normal for me to do that. But with the retrograde, I just continued to plan and to strategize and to work behind the scenes in my business instead of trying to be the brand and the person that's out in front all the time, which is so important. So you got I'm not saying that's not important. It is important, but you got to know when to do it and when not to focus so much on it. So it's not like I didn't show my face at all or that I stopped all my marketing completely. I balanced out the amount of time and effort that I was spending on it to work behind the scenes. And when I tell you, I got so much done, things that I thought that I was kind of prepping and planning to like hire someone to do all the back end stuff in my business. And I still could have done that, but why not use a Mars retrograde to do that? Because it was happening in my 12th house of working behind the scenes. 12th house can mean a lot of different things, but for me, that's how it applied. So instead of, kind of marching on January 1st at the top of 2025, I had a lot of clarity on still laying out my goals and my intentions for my business in my year, but I was planning it out in collaboration with these first couple of transits that were happening this year. And when we started out January 1st, we honestly had 3 planets in retrograde. Was it 3? Yeah, I think it was only 3. I think it was only 3. We had Uranus in retrograde, we had Jupiter in retrograde, and we had Mars. Uranus went direct January 30th. Jupiter went direct February 4th. And then the Mars retrograde ended and went direct on February 23rd. So we're in a period. There's another planet that's getting ready to go retrograde for Mars. I mean, for March, for March. And probably by the time this podcast comes out on Saturday, Venus will just be entering its retrograde. But anyway, the point is because I really collaborated with that retrograde and used it to my highest good for my business, I got so much done on the back end, things that I would have had to really hire someone. Hire someone, yes, and it took a lot of billable hours too. But I was able to just get it done, right? And then keep some other things in my business working and still meeting with clients. I'm still doing all the normal stuff. It's just when I had extra time or time that I would typically spend kind of doing outward marketing, I was really making sure the foundation of my business was a lot stronger than it was last year. Same thing with my clients. They were able to utilize these retrogrades. And when you have a understanding of, oh, there's a Jupiter retrograde happening, there's a Uranus retrograde happening, or there's a Mars retrograde happening. I'm pushing for this project. I mean, still do the thing. You could still show up. If you have meetings happening, show up to your meetings. You show up as usual if things are already scheduled. But it allows us to release some of that expectation of everything going well right out the gate. Or it releases some of the pressure of like, okay, this deal has to happen. I put so much work in it. You know, I can't foresee anything going wrong. This has to happen this week. And maybe it is designed to happen. It might be in your highest good and your client's highest good, but the environment, aka the planets, the astrological transits, may not be as supportive that particular week or month, right? So and as you're waiting or really preparing, waiting is kind of preparing. As you're waiting and preparing, you can strengthen your business or everything else that's happening in the background. So that way, when that deal does go through, that sale does go through, you're so much more prepared, ready, rested, whatever it is, instead of just launching into something. And so the retrogrades are typically telling us and showing us that we need to focus our energy on something else in preparation before we continue to move forward. You could still have your goals. You could still have successes during retrogrades too. I want to be clear. I'm not saying nothing successful happens during a retrograde. I'm just saying when we have awareness around it, we can actually work in collaboration with it. All right. So hopefully you're understanding how, wow, you know, it would be nice to know that blank, 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 like you could already, I'm sure if you're listening to me, you could already kind of imagine the cycles of your business or your career, and you can kind of see how things are different in different seasons, right? And you may not know what is astrologically happening, but imagine having that information. It could just change the game. It could change the game. All right. So that's kind of like a general thing. And I think I'll touch on a few more things today. I mean, this is really a deep topic, so I can't, it would be too much to put it all into one episode. But I like how we're flowing here. So we're going to keep going. There's an example that's coming up. I was just talking to a client yesterday, and they were actually going to give up on their business. They were actually going to give up on their business. But when I started to explain the transits to them, and I was like, look, I know it's been tough. And the transits that were happening were actually happening in their house of entrepreneurship. And so I could see that, yes, there was a lot of obstacles and challenges, and like they were getting kind of like misaligned business partners coming their way, and just like things were not taking off as they hoped. And sure, it could have been because of some of their actions, absolutely. But my job is to kind of look at the environment and the astrology to see, okay, what was the astrological reason? And if we can understand, okay, there was a lot of um, hard aspects in her house of entrepreneurship, but now those things are clearing and moving out of her house of entrepreneurship, and also it was like her 10th house and her 11th house. Those transits that were really difficult and challenging are ending for her. So instead of her quitting her business that she's been working on for years, and I think it's going to change the world, just just by no, just by I don't know anything about what she does, but just knowing a little bit about like the type of business that she has, I think it's going to change the world. But you know what? Our conversation yesterday or the other day, after I explained all the transits to her, she was like, okay. And to my suggestion was take a break, because I think she had been so exhausted from trying, pushing against, um, not knowingly, but kind of forcing things to happen when those retrogrades or those hard aspects in her house of business or career were not as supportive for what she was trying to do. But the next new transits were going to give her a lot more support. So instead of quitting her business and throwing in the towel, you could see how she can just go take a break, go on vacation for a couple of weeks, clear her mind, and then come back with a renewed sense of hope and stamina and passion and all the things. So that's a really good example. The fact that if we can use astrology to understand the challenges in our business, what does that change for us? One, it allows us to cut through the doubt. It allows us to cut through the doubt, because I think doubt is something that we can all experience in our careers. And yeah, you could just observe what's happening, and then you can make micro decisions on how you're going to handle those challenges and decisions once you understand what the environment is, aka the aspects or the retrogrades or whatever transits are happening in the different areas of your life, including business and career. Beautiful. And the houses that are most associated with business and career is the second house, that has to do with our confidence, our skill set, our resources, and the money that we earn. The fifth house has to do with entrepreneurship, our creativity, our ability to take risk and creatively solve our business problems and even our issues for our clients. The sixth house is applicable if you're working for someone else, mostly in your day-to-day habits. Or if you own a business, the sixth house can be for people who are working for you. So it's a really good house to understand. Your 10th house is also your career, it's your legacy. It's the authority that you have in your field. It's your public image as well. And I look, and it's in Placidus house system, it's attached to your MC, your midhaven. and your midheaven is directly related to your purpose. So that's an important house to look at when we're looking at business, and we're looking at what planets do you have there, and what's happening, what aspects are happening, what transits are happening. And even if there's nothing happening there, we also need to understand that too. Nothing meaning if you don't have any planets in your natal chart there, and if you don't have any current transits happening there, there's always opportunity in astrology. You just have to know. Well, you don't have to know how to interpret it, but if you work with someone like me or someone else who knows how to interpret it, you just receive the information and you put it in action. All right, and then in the 11th house for entrepreneurs, this is the house of this is the money of our business, and it's networking, and it's social media, and it's how we reach large audiences. So it's also an important house. So again, you can see in astrology, there's certain houses, and if you're brand new to astrology, you know by now I'm not just talking about sun sign horoscopes. There's a chart, and then the chart looks like a pizza pie, and there's 12 slices of pizza, and each slice of pizza is a different house, and there might be some planets on some certain slices. Those planets are the pepperoni, and then some slices of pizza don't have any planets there, and they might just have cheese. Then there's the crust that has the different signs around it. And you don't have to focus on looking at the chart. I tell people, when you want to receive astrology information, don't worry about trying to understand astrology. Just take the takeaways. Let someone else interpret it for you, and you take the suggestions. And they're just suggestions. They're not mandatory. They're not required. It's not meant to box you in. It's meant to help you navigate your life more powerfully, with more sovereignty, with more empowerment, with more confidence, with more clarity, all the things. All right, so that wraps it up for today. Thank you for joining me here. If you want to put in the chat, if you're on YouTube, you can just comment on how this resonates with you. I would love to hear from you. Talk to you soon. Catch you on the next episode.